Hi everyone, James here, founder of Panache Cruises. Today we're really fortunate to have with us Andy Harmer, the director of CLIA for UK and Ireland, CLIA being Cruise Lines International Association. So over the last 6 months, funnily enough, Andy tells me he's been very busy, culminating in some quite exciting documentation that he's been working on with the cruise lines and the government over the last few months. So Andy, just give us a bit of an overview. What have you been up to?
It feels a long time ago. 6 months is a long time in 2020, I think. But yeah, well, I think as an industry, we took a decision a long time ago that we would be as collaborative as we could be in developing a route map for the resumption of cruising. So we brought together some of the experts from the cruise lines, and we're really lucky in cruise. We have some very talented, very clever people who work in operations, who work in medical, who work with ports and port health, etc. So we're very lucky, and we brought those people together. And then we brought together some of those government departments as well that have an interest in cruise. So that was led by Department for Transport, but actually that gave us the opportunity to work with ports and the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, for example, and Public Health England, and various other British organisations. And then there was a kind of another stream coming across from Europe. So the European document had already been produced fairly early on in the summer, and we used that as a template in order to talk to the British government about what a return to cruising would look like. So obviously things change and evolve fairly rapidly. We are as a world learning more about this pandemic as time goes on, and we're learning a lot about testing and symptoms and all of those kinds of things. So it's been busy trying to keep up with all of those different changes, but we've been impressed by the level of support that we've received from the government, who obviously recognise the importance of the cruise industry, not just to holiday makers, but also to the British economy. And so the result of that was that we produced a framework document with government endorsement, and what that allows to happen now in the UK is that the cruise lines themselves can now develop their own policies and procedures for when cruising does resume. So that's broadly what the last 6 months of my life has looked like. I don't feel as if I've left the attic very often where my desk is, but it's important work, and it's important because, you know, the industry takes this very, very seriously. I think we were one of the few industries in the world who voluntarily suspended our operations. We were one of the first to do it as well, and we continue to refrain from cruising out of the UK, for example, and in different parts of the world. So we've tried to do as an industry the right thing all the way along, and that has meant that we wanted to produce something that the government was happy with and had worked with us. So that's where we are. So that's the document that we produced last week.
Great, and the framework is there as guidance to individual cruise lines, but obviously gives them, as the clue's in the title, isn't it, the framework in which to work within. So I guess what will cruising look like, when cruising returns? What will it look like across the different major cruise lines?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we take our lead from some cruising that has already resumed. So in some parts of Europe, for example, Mediterranean, we've seen the resumption of some sailings by a range of different cruise lines, actually. And what's interesting is they all follow very similar themes in the way that they operate. But actually, because the ships are different, because the itineraries and ports are different, because their demographic is different, they're doing things all in a slightly different way. And that's really where the UK document framework, as to why we've called it a framework, because it does allow each individual cruise line now to look at the framework, the kind of things that they need to think about, and then kind of apply that to their ships and itineraries and ports of call. So the difference really with the UK framework document and some of the others from Europe is that we had to bring on board some of the UK regulations. So things like social distancing and face coverings, etc. But now the cruise lines will develop more detailed plans around things like testing and looking after the crew, and some of the other measures that need to be taken. The only caveat, the only thing I'll say though, of course, is that cruising isn't resuming from UK waters this week, this month, and therefore, it's very difficult to talk about what cruising will look like in a couple of months' time, even just because things are changing and evolving still so quickly. But you can expect to see some of the measures that we have got used to in our ordinary lives. I think it's just applied to a ship. And then the other announcement that was made this week was around testing. So as a global cruise industry, we have committed now to mandatory testing of all guests and crew at embarkation, which is a really important step. Again, it shows the seriousness that we take this. It shows that we're going that extra mile, as the industry already has done and continues to do. So that's an important step forward, and really, again, sets us apart, I think, from other industries, other sectors, other forms of travel and hospitality, that we have made that commitment.
Okay, and you touched a little bit on what things may look like on board, Andy. I don't know whether you can go into any more details and give a few ideas about what specific things might look like on board, whether that's something you're able to go into that sort of detail.
It's difficult to go into detail purely because a lot of those measures will vary cruise ship to cruise ship and even cruise line to cruise line. But again, if you look at the experience of some of the cruise lines that are already operating in the world, actually there's very little difference. And face coverings are important where social distancing isn't possible. Of course, a heightened level of sanitization, of hand washing, of hand sanitizing being throughout the ship, etc. Of additional the testing and screening that we talked about at embarkation. So a lot of those measures will come in, and we can expect that to be part of the experience. Again, subject to what may change over the next couple of weeks and months before UK cruising resumes. But I think what's also important to say is actually the cruise industry already has a long history of course looking after our guests properly. So we already have medical facilities on board all of our ocean ships, but they will of course be enhanced. And some of that enhancement includes areas of quarantine and isolation if need be. We already had hand sanitization and pre-screening, so a lot of those measures we're already used to, but these are about going much further and paying particular attention to COVID-19. But there is a document that we have produced which is very much geared at guests in order that people can understand the kind of measures that are being thought about and looked at. And it's worth having a look. But as I say, as cruise lines develop and produce their own policies and procedures, it's probably that would be more of interest, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I take that point. And in terms of when cruise lines recommence their sailings, what are we actually waiting for, or who are we actually waiting for before cruise lines get the green light? Because of course the green light will come, and it doesn't mean say the next day cruises are going to start. There's going to be a period of time between getting the green light, so to speak, and cruising restarting. So what are we actually waiting for before that rephasing and recommencing of cruising starts?
So I think fairly early on this year, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office brought out a travel advisory, and we're still working with the Foreign Office to get that advice changed. And it's important that changes because that gives the confidence to guests, of course. But we're very much working on that. I think we always have to take cruising against a backdrop of a very fast-moving and changing situation in the UK. So the epidemiological situation in the UK is very different this week or this month than it was last month. So it's important that we understand that cruising is just a part of the way in which we interact. But I think the important thing about the framework document is that it came with that government commendation. So that step has already happened. And so as things improve in the UK, I'm sure that as with the rest of travel, as things are starting to change and adjust as we're coming out of this wave, then cruise will open up. But as you say, there's a very long, complicated process of restarting the ships. They're currently no guests on board out of UK waters. So that process has to be looked at, but actually it gives us an opportunity to continue to look at the measures and protocols and processes that need to be in place so that when we do resume cruising, that we do so absolutely with our guests and crew front of mind.
Okay, and I think the big three cruise lines, Carnival Corp, Royal Caribbean Group, and the Norwegian Group, have made statements that seem to indicate that the recommencement of cruise will happen sometime in 2020. You know, very tentative start in cruising and then building up. You know, perhaps taking 6 months at least to get the full. You know, fleet of ships out there. You know, what are your thoughts on when cruising will restart? You know, from the UK and you know be able to recommence.
Yeah, you say very carefully then from the UK, and actually, you know, as we've said, ocean cruising has recommenced in parts of Europe. We've also seen, of course, some river cruising starting to operate in mainland Europe as well, which is very encouraging. And I think one of the most encouraging things is the guest reviews after those cruises, because, you know, they can't speak highly enough both of the cruise experience, but also of the way that health aspect of their holiday has been looked after. It's very difficult to give dates as to when things will change, just because the current situation in the UK is changing so quickly and so drastically. But we will continue to work very closely with government. We've always taken the approach of being very collaborative. We very much value the input from Department for Health and Public Health England and Port Health, etc., because that is really important. And we'll continue to work with them so that they, you know, they can work with us for that resumption of cruising.
Okay, thanks, Andy. And I guess a final question from you: Why do you think customers should be confident to book a cruise now, even though it might not be sailing till later in 2021 or 2022? You know, why should they have the confidence to book that cruise now?
Well, I think firstly, one of the things we're very lucky with in the cruise industry is that we have people who have taken cruise holidays before, and they understand absolutely the seriousness with which we take health on board our ships, and they can now have the confidence that this new framework document and some of the other protocols that have been announced by cruise lines go even further to protect our guests and crew. And I think, you know, we are sure that when the time is right, when they are open to travel again, that they will very much take a cruise, because, you know, we've all missed that travel opportunity this year. We're all very keen to visit new places and to once again experience a holiday. So I think we're very lucky we have those advocates who understand cruise, who will be ready to cruise again. The cruise industry has always done the right thing, I think, in this area, and I think we've proved that this year more than ever. And I think, again, that should give confidence to people that we absolutely are putting their health at the heart of everything we do. And then, of course, you know, it's important that the government works with us for that recommencement and that resumption of sailings, to make sure that they also are happy with everything that we're doing. So, you know, with all of these different agencies working with us, with the cruise lines taking their time and working through protocols and learning from their new experiences, and then looking across to Europe and seeing that cruising has already safely resumed in many countries. Absolutely, you know, we should look forward to a good year of cruising next year.
Andy, you're a very, very busy man. I really appreciate you giving up some time to have a chat to me today. And, you know, I think everyone wishes you the best of luck. And, you know, we'd love to see those cruise ships sailing very soon. So thanks again, Andy, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, James. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.